You're listening to an IOE podcast from the UCL Institute of Education. Powered by UCL Minds.
This is Research for the Real World. Conversations with researchers about the paths they've taken to shape our everyday lives.
This is Caroline from first year BSc Social Sciences. I think education is meant to raise awareness of the magnitude and seriousness of the climate crisis situation, radiating its effect from individual to family to community and then eventually to the entire society. And I think one of the most important things is to show people in a very straightforward manner of facts and interpretations of those, to show them that climate issues are not far-fetched, but something that concerns everyone.
Hi, I'm EQ, and I'm a Year 2 student from Psychology with Education. Education is not for those who have already aware of climate change, but for those who are not aware of seriousness of climate crisis.
My name is Navya, and I'm in my second year of study. I care most about how the socioeconomically disadvantaged communities will bear the brunt of the climate crisis. The Stern report noted that climate change is expected to increase poverty owing to its effects on agriculture, flooding, malnutrition, water resources, and health. A report by the UN says that there is enough evidence to suggest that inequality aggravates the position of the disadvantaged groups of society via climate change impact through an increase in the exposure to climate hazards, an increase in the susceptibility to damage caused by climate hazards, and a decrease in the ability to actually cope with and recover from this damage.
My name is Clara Federath, and I'm part of the UCL IOE alumni class of 2020. I first started taking action against the climate crisis, I think, in 2015 when the Global Climate March was taking place. I volunteered, and that was right before the Paris Agreement was signed. And then throughout my time at UCL, I was very involved in the climate action movement, ranging from working on issues around plastic pollution to actually doing my undergrad research project and my master's research project on different topics related to sustainability at UCL. So UCL very much carved kind of my path towards a career. I now work in as a behavioral science consultant, working predominantly on sustainability related and conservation projects across Southeast Asia.
What you just heard were a few voices from students from the Institute of Education. When you think about climate change and education, is that what you think of? When I think of the term climate change, it creates a sense of internal panic because I think of the flash floods, droughts, and extreme weather conditions that we're all experiencing, biodiversity that is at stake, and the fine line that we tread in the actions we take and our relationship with Mother Nature. The theme for Season 11 of Research for the Real World is climate change and action within the education realm. Why? Well, on the 31st of October is the start of the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference, better known as COP26, and it will be held in Glasgow, United Kingdom, just a train ride away. There's a lot of fire and discussion surrounding the agenda, if anything will be done, but ultimately, I think it may be just smoke. Our team wants to know what educators are doing right now to help curb the climate emergency, who aren't just waiting for politicians, or as Greta Thunberg would say, build back better, blah, blah, blah. On this series, Sam, our friend Rob Webster, and I will be speaking to some fantastic researchers that will make you think a bit differently about education and climate change. Sam Sims will be speaking to Kaori Kitagawa about community learning for disaster preparedness and working with international collaborators in interdisciplinary projects.
The new announcement was made in 2012, and some of the areas were specifically kind of targeted because of this scale of possibility and the damage. And obviously, since then, the prefecture and the region has been really trying hard to prepare for it. And of course, again, hard and soft measures. So one very a famous example of hard measures is they created a huge tsunami towers.
Rob Webster will be speaking to Nicola Walshe about research on teacher education practices in environmental and sustainability education.
I think climate change is incredibly complex to teach about, and on top of the sort of the wider discourse that you've just referred to, it's complex for a number of reasons. So it's complex because you have a sort of temporal and spatial outsourcing, if you like, of climate change to people and places who have contributed least of all. So as a temporal crisis, global warming has taken generations, if not centuries, to develop and will inevitably affect those who haven't been born yet.
And I will be speaking to Charlotte Nussey about her research journey on the intersection of international development, SDG goals, and the environment.
One of the things that's been really interesting for us as part of the Climate U project is to run this huge survey with students to ask how they feel about the crisis. And one of the most interesting for us emergent findings is that students are in the main responding that they are learning about the climate through their work at universities, but the vast majority say they'd like to learn more. Very few of the students in our survey responded that they felt satisfied with the level of the teaching.
And Tristan McCowan about transforming universities for a changing climate.
There's the language element. So the countries we're working with are all multilingual, but they have dominant languages in their higher education systems. So in Brazil and Mozambique, that's Portuguese. In Kenya and Fiji, that's English. And dialogue across those big language groups is very important. I've as I said, I've worked in Brazil for many years, and it's very disheartening how little interaction there is across the huge Portuguese language community and educational research community and all the published research there, and what's being published and read and discussed in English.
So join me, Sam, and Rob talking everything climate change and education on this series on research for the real world.
Research for the Real World is brought to you by the IOE Marketing and Communications team,
in association with IOE Research Development.
This podcast is presented by me, Dr. Carrie Wong,
and me, Dr. Sam Sims.
The theme music was created by Rob Cochran.
Tatiana Sotero Diaz is the series advisor.
Amy Leibowitz is the series producer.
And Jason Illigan is the executive producer of the IOE podcast.
Thanks so much for downloading and listening to this IOE podcast from the UCL Institute of Education, University College London.